So I got this question and I would like to address it. How much of a president's policy affects the global markets when it comes to oil and gas? So historically speaking, a president's policy, it is very rare for a president's policy to have any type of impact on the global market. Historically speaking. Now, the Shale Revolution had an impact on the global market, but that didn't come from a policy. Probably the biggest change that had an impact on global markets during our lifetime was when the United States lifted the oil export ban in 2015. That had a huge impact on the global market. And it triggered the largest oil crash in history because OPEC was not happy that we were going to take all that market share. But that was something that was passed by Congress. Obama was opposed to it. The Republicans gave him some stuff on renewables, so he signed it. Another thing it did is it made our oil much more available to the global market and increased the value of it. For whatever reason, the hyperbole of politics may make people think that normal everyday presidential policy impacts global markets and gas prices. It really doesn't. The word regulations is a four-letter word that gets thrown around a lot. Doesn't really impact prices. Although it does in California, but that's because they've got an enormous amount of regulations. Far beyond anything we've seen on a national scale, and still wouldn't impact the global market. Obama approved the Keystone Pipeline, didn't impact the global market. Biden killed the Keystone XL, didn't impact the global market. Neither of those things impacted gas prices either. These things just aren't big enough to impact the global market. They're not big enough to impact global pricing, and they're not big enough to impact gas prices in the United States. There's sort of an unwritten rule, and that is you don't mess with the global oil markets. That is an unwritten rule. And the reason you don't mess with them is because it's kind of like Back to the Future. You fuck around in the global markets, and shit's going to happen down the road that you don't see coming. And that is why, under the Trump and Biden administrations, we have seen three things impact global markets. But had the first thing never occurred, the second and third thing would have never occurred either. It was a domino effect. So this is the first presidential action that I can think of in my lifetime that actually had an impact on global markets. When Donald Trump got OPEC to flood the world with oil and bring it crashing down. That wasn't some congressional thing. That was President Trump. And what was really crazy about it was oil prices weren't high at all. Gas prices weren't high at all. Why are you crashing a market that is running beautifully? Didn't have high prices. Why would you crash that market? Had this never happened, then the OPEC 2020 deal would have never happened. Because when you double cross oil cartels, they never forget, and they will get their revenge. And that's exactly what they did. So the first major policy that impacted global, markets was Trump getting OPEC to flood the market. The second one was OPEC's revenge on Donald Trump, which he fell for and agreed to. A 2-year, 10% production cut that led to the highest gas prices in history? Yeah. If the first deal never happened, this deal wouldn't have happened. And if this deal never happened, then this deal would have never happened. When Joe Biden sold 180 million barrels of oil out of the strategic reserve. Now, this oil still would have been sold, but it would have been sold in 6 months. It would have been sold over a period of years, all the way out to 2027. But because of this, which occurred because of this, then we had to do this. There's a theme in all of these things. The word unprecedented. Yeah, unprecedented. This is historic, but the word unprecedented appears several times in the article. Yeah. So what I'm saying is it takes things that are historic or unprecedented or extremely rare and big to actually impact the global markets. Not some regulations, not some stupid pipeline, not a temporary pause on new leases. So no, the everyday, mundane, day-to-day policies, whether they're pro-oil or anti-oil, don't have an impact on global markets. It is the historic and unprecedented things that have never happened before that have those impacts. The idea that some company that makes $50 billion a year gives a shit about some regulations is just ridiculous. It really is. What, are you going to not go make your $50 billion a year because of some regulation? Give me a break. Thanks.